In the last video segment, we explored the mechanisms behind labor income divergence, but remember that growing inequality is also taking place in the divergence of capital income. In pure capitalism, everyone is supposed to be responsible for their own success. It's a matter of survival of the fittest. Companies are created and are responsible for their performance over time. In terms of family, children don't inherit wealth within a purely capitalist society. Instead, each generation is responsible for creating their own wealth. And that's how it used to be in the United States, in part because of the tax policies of the past, which we'll talk about shortly, but also because, for most people, the purpose of wealth was to finance their own retirement. That was a higher priority than passing wealth down to the next generation. But since the 1970s, we've become a society in which inheritances are growing tremendously, and they are giving each successive generation of the economically privileged a greater and greater advantage, to the point where the concentration of wealth is reaching extreme levels. So within the upper class, particularly within the dominant class, amassing wealth is no longer just for retirement. It now fulfills a desire to perpetuate the family fortune. In essence, the system of pure capitalism, the ideal upon which we founded our economic system, has crumbled away. We've shifted from an emphasis on pure capitalism to what is called patrimonial capitalism, in which there is an increased emphasis and reliance on inheritance. What this means is that there is less and less equality of opportunity as a minority of the population inherits enough money to give them a significant advantage in life. Let's look at an example from France. Turn to figure 1111 in your handout. Remember, Piketty is French, so his focus was on that country. And keep in mind that France is currently more egalitarian than we are in terms of income and wealth. So what you see here will be more extreme when you look at the United States. This table shows what percentage of the people born in each year inherited more money than those in the lower class were able to earn in an entire lifetime. So, in the midst of the great shocks of the 20th century, only about 2.5% of those born inherited more money than those in the lower class could expect to earn in a lifetime. But this has climbed so that for those born since 1970, between 12 and 15% will inherit more money than a person in the lower class will earn in their entire lifetime. And notice that this is higher than during the French colonial heydays of the 17 and 1800s. Clearly, inheritance is playing an increasing role in the growing wealth disparities because most people will never inherit that much money, which means that they, their children, their grandchildren, and each generation after them starts off farther and farther behind this elite minority whose fortunes continue to grow across generations. The second thing to keep in mind regarding the divergence of capital income has to do with the underlying economic principles regarding the growth of capital over time. Money that's invested, something the upper class is much more likely to be able to do, grows significantly over time, and the longer it's invested, the more it grows. Typically, the economy grows 1 to 3% in a year, and 3% is a very high growth rate for an established economy like ours. But invested capital generally grows around 5% per year. For the elite who can afford high-end investment managers, it's not uncommon to achieve an average rate of return of 8 to 10%. What this means is that the wealth accumulated in the past is recapitalized more quickly than the economy itself grows. And if you're inheriting money, it has had a long time to grow and to continue growing. Someone who hasn't inherited anything and who is just starting out has nothing to give them a boost. In other words, the very nature of compounding interest works in the favor of those with more money. The more money you have to start with, the more money you will make. This obviously puts everyone else at a disadvantage with regard to socioeconomic status. The end result is increasing inequality, increasing economic divergence.